That's a load of science.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of That's a Lot of Science, the podcast about science and everything about it. Today we are joined by Rachel Pearce, business development director at SK Famteco and co-founder of Oxford Women in Life Science. First of all, Rachel, thank you very much for being here with us today, accepting our invite. And I mean, we usually start like this. I mean, I ask you to give a little bit of introduction about yourself. What's your background? What is your story? And so people that are listening us can know you a little bit better before we deep dive into the conversation. Please.
Thanks very much, Alessio. And firstly, let me say thanks so much for, requesting to meet me and then inviting me to film this podcast with you. And so that's a real privilege, and thanks for that opportunity. I'm looking forward to the conversation. And we're mostly going to be talking about the experience of women working in sciences and the role that I'm playing at the moment, trying to build a small network for women in life sciences in my local area. So let me start at the beginning and introduce myself to everyone. So I'm Rachel, and I'm a chemistry graduate. So I have a master in chemistry degree, and I've always seen, being a chemist as an integral part of my identity. So although I no longer perhaps utilize those chemistry skills as much as I once did, I still see myself as a chemist. So when I left university, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with life. I think that's okay. I still, to some degree, don't know exactly what I want to do in life. Not everyone needs to have that overarching ambition and, clear purpose of where they want to go. But I knew a couple of fundamental things, like that I wanted to apply my scientific mindset and my diverse skills throughout my career. So after exploring a few options, I eventually landed a job as a chemist working in a CRO company based in Oxfordshire, and that's where I've continued with my career. So I spent about 4 years working in research, but it didn't take me very long to realize that actually I didn't have that same passion for doing the research that I saw in my peers. And I think that self-awareness and recognition is quite important to, plan and structure your career journey. So I went to the person I normally do for guidance and advice, and that's my dad. And he said, Rachel, you should have a crack at sales. So the obvious path was to try and look for a scientific, sales positions, quite a good career route. And I was quite fortunate that a very suitable opportunity arose quite quickly. So I did my master's research in the field of carbohydrate chemistry and researching novel glycosylation reaction. And a sales opportunity came up at a business quite close by that was focused on a portfolio of carbohydrate-derived chemical products. So it was a absolutely fantastic fit for me, and I moved quite swiftly out of the lab and into a commercial and sales business development position, where I was managing a portfolio of raw materials derived from carbohydrates with some niche applications. And I absolutely loved the switch, and I never looked back at that point, having made that decision. And I spent a really happy decade working for what was called Carbosynth, and that was then acquired by Biosynth. But 10 years is quite a long time to spend in a job, and it was very enjoyable, and I found that role really fulfilling. But I decided it was time to, branch out and stretch myself again. So I moved into a more consultative role at a small CRO that had been known to me. So that's called DomainX. And I had to learn a lot more biology. And that was the point in my career where I also really upped my networking participation. And that's not something that's never really fazed me. I've always felt quite confident. And, although I was a bit nervous at first, I just, launched straight into building my network. And it was during that time, along that journey, meeting other individuals through networking, that the idea to form a new network specifically for Oxford women in our field. So my co-founder, Mary Claire, she had the idea and she mentioned it to me and said, hey, Rachel, is that something you would like to be involved in? And so I didn't really give it too much thought, and I just went, Yeah, sure. Why
straight
not?
into it. Amazing.
So we began shaping a vision, and we've held a couple of events for small low-key events, but they've been so welcomed by the people that we know and the women that I approached to see if they were interested in it. So I'm really excited about this next chapter, launching this Oxford Women in Life Sciences network, and helping to empower more women in their roles. So that's a bit about me and my journey this
Good. Yeah, I mean,
far.
already a
Yeah.
lot of very nice things. I mean, very amazing career. I mean, congratulations to that. I mean, I one thing I wanted to ask you actually, like, I mean, you say you are a chemist and by background, and I am a chemist myself. And how did you find moving from science to sales and business dev? Because for what I've seen in my experience, I worked for a CRO for many years. We, as a scientist, we were never really exposed to that. So I was finding very challenging then when I started, taking care of more business dev activities. How did you find it there? I mean, like, was it challenging? Did you needed some support, some mentorship, or you did some courses, something else?
Yeah, well, my first experience with sales, was well supported in a company that had, very strong market position and successful, acquisition of leads and opportunities through its website and its catalog of products. And so, I've always had an aptitude for numbers, so I could just, work out margins and set up pricing, and I had a lot of control over that sales process in the bits that I did. I think it came relatively naturally to me to work out the profitability of things, and to make sure that it was a good a good solution on both sides. What I found most rewarding and enriching in that role was that I saw myself really, and when I identified it, as being a matchmaker. So it's meeting or having a discussion with a client, a customer who's got a real need. So might be a researcher or a producer, and they need a raw material that's going to enable their research. So they need a solution for that. And then I had access to synthetic roots and scientists and chemists that were able to manufacture those products for them. And so I could tie the whole deal together from end to end. And I found that a really rewarding and privileged position to be in, actually, to enable research. And so whilst I wasn't actually, at the bench any longer, fulfilling, and set out to solve unique scientific challenges, I was playing a fundamental role in other people's research and enabling that through providing the materials that they needed through a network of suppliers and people with the correct know-how. So, and of course, I'm a diverse person, and I've got many skills and quite strong interpersonal skills, and so that really was to my benefit in making that transition and moving into the sales role. So I've come across more recently a lot of advice trying to dispel this kind of ideology that you need to be extroverted to be successful in sales. And actually, we see a lot more personalities that are more on the introverted side, trying to highlight about how you can build a successful career in sales, even if perhaps you don't have that stereotypical portrayal of what a salesperson looks like. So I'd really encourage people that do want to make that switch to have more conversations and find out about it, and see if it could be a fit for them, because it can be a really rewarding switch.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point, actually. Yeah, you always have this idea of a sales person that is, going out, chatty, very, open, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, it can help, but it doesn't have to be that way. And many people might find themselves comfortable doing that, even if they are, in general, like introverted people. So it is important to explore that. And I mean, yeah, communicate with people. It would help, like people that are in position like yours, or like, that are already in that world, might also, provide some suggestion or some direction, I would say.
And my main piece of advice is that, and something that I think has really helped in my career is about finding that right fit for you. it might not be that every opportunity or role is the right one, but when you do find that really good fit, that's when you can really progress and feel very comfortable making that switch, as I did. I had just enough foundation in the core subject area and focus area of the business that actually I was a really great fit for that role. So I think it's when you find that, which is quite possible. It's like such a wide and broad industry that there's so much exciting things going on that if you can find that fit, it can be a really, it can be really beneficial on both sides.
Exactly. And I mean, like, as you said, you brought that experience with carbohydrates directly in a position that required exactly that. So, to keep an eye on similar things that are going on around you, and you might find the perfect fit for you. Absolutely right. And this is a switch that can happen at any age, at any stage of your career. So sometimes people feel like, they are caged in a situation because they are there, they follow all the steps required, and they feel like, no, now it's too late to change. But actually it's not. I mean, it's important to feel rewarded in what we do. And so what is before we move to the core to the other topic, like what is like the day-to-day job of a business development director in a company like yours?
Well, the other great thing about business development is that it can mean a lot of different things in different, environments and different types of businesses. So in my career, I've always been focused on, revenue generating contracts. So essentially trying to identify organizations that are a fit for the services that are provided by my business, and then try to find the right, stakeholders to approach, to make an introduction about, what sort of solutions we offer and the problems that might arise in their daily lives, to try and find an effective messaging to get that across to them, being just about the right level of persistent. So, to keep up a regular, effort in creating new opportunities or identifying new opportunities. So you do have to be quite robust. You have to be able to take rejection and not take that personally. And then I, see those discussions and negotiations right through to completion of a signed contract, and then it's over to the operations team to deliver on what's been outlined. But it's highly consultative, and it involves a whole team behind me always in these discussions, and so I'm just one piece in the whole process. But again, for me, it's all about finding that right fit. So it's about understanding the core strengths of the organization, and knowing about how they can fit in when you find out something about the situation of the prospective customer or customers. And then, of course, there's an element of strengthening existing customer relationships and building upon that. So that's what I do mainly in my current day-to-day. But in other roles in the past, it's been much more transactional, and it's been all inbound lead led. So with customers coming to me directly with their requirements, and me looking at a suitable solution for them that will fit all the different criteria that they're looking for. So it's, it can be quite fast paced. So in my previous roles, it's been a very short sales cycle in some instances, and in others, it's been, much more protracted, and it's involved a long term, building up of a relationship, building credibility and trust, and maintaining contact, waiting for the timing to be right for the other organization before they're ready to move ahead. So, and in other organizations, business development can mean totally different things. It can be about identifying new areas for the business to move in. So I've also been, involved a lot in identifying other products to add to the, to the catalog and repertoire of products that were sold in one of my previous roles. So it can mean lots of different things in different circumstances, and that's why it's also really important to find out more about, what types of roles are available, in the field of sales, because it can mean very different things.
Yeah, exactly. You can end up doing very different things, even within the same week or the same day, And I mean, and it is, of course, I mean, as you say, it's super important, like to strengthen collaboration, to strengthen relationship, and having constant contact with your clients and talking and communicating and stuff. So okay, let's shift a little bit. So I mean, on top of this, you also became an advocate for supporting women in life science. You already said at the beginning that you have founded this association, Oxford Women in Life Science, because you are based in Oxford, so it's more like a local support in that area. You already mentioned that you co-founded this with another person, but how did it start? Of course, like you say, she introduced that to you, but I mean, was there a specific event that said, okay, I have to do something? Or was more like something that you always wanted to do since you were a student? Did you were some or something that you were kind of exposed to it in anyhow, or how did it start?
Sure. Well, so in the UK, we have the BIA, so Bioindustry Association of the UK, something like that, and they have a Women in Biotech group. So I'd seen that this Women in Biotech series of events had been organised in Cambridge, in Oxford, and in London, and it seemed that these were really, really popular. So lots of women obviously saw a need and a benefit from having such an event, an opportunity to perhaps express our experiences more easily. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the event when it occurred, but I saw obviously there was an unmet need had been identified. And so when my co-founder suggested that she thought it might be nice to try and start something up more regularly, so we had both met through the OBN network, which exists for supporting the life sciences industry in Oxfordshire. It's a really great organisation, and they provide very accessible networking events. And so in discussion with Mary Claire, we both shared our experiences of feeling increasingly isolated as we've progressed in our careers. So the organizations that we work with are quite male dominated, particularly at the, senior stakeholder level. And so it can feel, you can just feel a little bit more alone when dealing in these kind of roles. And so that's, it's not a unique experience. There are many of us, as we've progressed in our careers, that have these feelings. And women have this fundamental need to talk about feelings much more and experiences, and we are much more about sharing. And I do believe that men and women have differences, right? We are different, and we have different needs. So the idea of founding the Oxford Women in Life Sciences Network was about providing those connections between women so that they could receive peer-to-peer mentorship. That's always been very important for me in my personal development. Also to perhaps identify individuals who they might reach out to for more formal mentorship, perhaps women that have, been before them in the sort of career path that they want to choose. And also to try and adopt this more upcoming idea of the reverse mentor. So that's where someone more senior actually receives some degree of mentorship from someone who's their junior. So of course, I think intergenerational experiences have always been really a key in my career as well. I've always been pretty comfortable talking to more senior people, and and the youth of today have had a different growing up experience. They're much more tech savvy, or they've got new ideas. And I think it's really important for everyone to be open-minded about opportunities to learn. We can learn from anyone. And if you approach a conversation with that open-mindedness to understand that, there can be a successful interaction with everyone that you meet, you can learn something from almost anyone when you are open to a conversation.
Exactly.
So sorry, loads of
no,
going a bit off tangent here, but loads of reasons why networking is so beneficial.
Yeah. No, but just because, as you said, it's very important that it's always like, from the younger that receives, feedback and suggestion from the, more seasoned, let's say, or more expert people. But it's always, it's always been, bi-directional. We need to be aware that the new generation are different. Different people from us. They have been exposed to different things, and they might have a different view on things that we think are, set in stones. So then we need to keep their open-mindedness. Now that I mean, I feel like I am becoming the more seasoned person rather than, I mean, now that the new generation is coming into the work, into the workplaces. So, I mean, that's important, like to keep your mind open, your ears open, and listen also to the younger people, because they can bring a lot of value to the conversation. It's not just, okay, you don't know stuff. I am the expert here. No, I mean, don't put that position. And I feel that is both a generational, but also a gender, problem that we still have now, with in particular in an industry like the pharma world that is still heavily male dominated. That we feel like the voice of someone is louder than the voice of women and the women. And do you feel like it is different from your personal experience, like? You were a scientist first and then you move into sales. Do you feel like these two were within the same, let's say, industry, but the scientist is more equal than the sales, the other way around? How is it from your perspective?
So yeah, so on that subject, it's sort of course, one of the things that I've always contemplated as I've progressed in my career is, where does the problem of gender disparity come from? Right? Because we see awful lot of effort it's put on encouraging girls and women to adopt science subjects, STEM subjects,
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of effort in promoting those subjects to young people, and I think that's great. Not to take anything away from that, I think that has definitely been essential in the past, and it's definitely helped to increase the uptake of women and girls into those subjects. But I think it's important to acknowledge that when we look at the undergraduate intake level, it is pretty much across the sciences as a whole, it's pretty much parity, right? Certainly in my experience, which is in chemistry as a subject, it's about 50-50, near enough it's parity. So that's not where the problem lies then. That's
Mm-hmm.
my personal opinion, that we don't have a problem of encouraging women that they should be scientists because they are taking up those subjects. And similarly, when I started my career, it's pretty much even numbers of men and women working in the lab. So I've always contemplated, where does the problem come from that as women progress in their careers, that they fall away from those leadership positions? Is it that they're less capable? Clearly, I don't think so. And I think a lot of people don't think so. And it's a really complex problem. There are lots of reasons behind that. It can be, personal decision, it can be the need to start a family life, for the disparity in home lives that leads to that. It could be, there are lots of different theories. Some people think it's to do with that women are more risk averse.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really complex situation. And, I've often thought also, actually, am I part of the problem? Because I also took the decision to move out of that scientific career path and move into something else. As I said, I still see myself as a scientist. I'm still working in this industry. But I also feel like I've abandoned my women folk by moving out of that environment. So I'm part of the problem. And so another reason why I felt that this network would be a good idea is it's something that I can do. As a scientist, I never really thought about networking. It was never really promoted to me. And it was only as I started actually to explore making that first career pivot that I read a self-help book, as it were, for some advice on thinking about alternative career paths. And one of the best pieces of advice I took away from that book was just to start networking. All that networking is having a conversation with somebody to try and find out something that you're both interested in, or, can find interest in discussing together. So that was really when I first started to adopt the idea of networking. And I've been aware that for a lot of women working in sciences, perhaps networking isn't a big part of what they do. And also from a discussion with some of my closest confidants, discovering that actually they find the idea of networking, even in a conference where they're in their core subject area with their peers, they find it quite uncomfortable. They don't go in there with confidence. And so part of the idea was to create, an inclusive opportunity for women that perhaps don't network as much, just to broaden their own networks, to come along and meet a group of other individuals with whom they have commonality in the same area, working in the broad life sciences area. So they should have experiences to share and learn from one another. So I'm not sure whether I went off topic here from your question.
No,
But,
absolutely. No, I mean, no, nothing is off topic here. I mean, of course,
and I
that's
also want to be clear that, it's really important to emphasize that, this group is not about being exclusionary to the other gender. Although we have decided to name ourselves Oxford Women in Life Sciences, we're very clear that we are an organization and a group, a community that's open for anyone to participate. Anyone who thinks that they could benefit is very welcome to join us. So although I use the word women all the time, I should perhaps say individuals
no,
or
but
people.
okay, no. I mean, yeah. We know. We know that. I mean, don't worry. But it's clear that, of course, right now we are still thinking about by gender situations, or male and I mean men and women, or male and female, whatever. Of course, there are all the other genders that, of course, can feel the same problem, the same situation.
Absolutely.
So they might want to feel included as well. That's a problem, I think, of inclusion and not feeling connected, that makes you even more, I mean, conservative in your decision. All right, you say that one of the possible problem was that I mean the limiting access to the more decision making position for women is because they are perceived as more risk averting, and feeling excluded from your community will make you even more afraid of taking risks and making bold decisions. So it is important that you have these kind of things. And I mean, the life science world is a very wide topic. And I mean, is there? I mean, of course. I mean, I lived in Oxford for a year, so I know that there is a lot of science going on. Let's put it this way. But from the other industries that are not specifically pharma, are there some strategies, some ideas that, of course, we are not trying to resolve this problem right here, right now, but like what are other worlds doing in these aspects to facilitate also these challenges?
Yeah, well, our most recent event was around some topics and research and ideas that had been uncovered by the group Advanced Oxford. So they're a business that supports, and a network, a member organization that supports, the innovative industries that are obviously quite strong in the Oxford area. And a PhD student, Hannah, she did a project looking at the effect of culture and how that impacts innovation. And this report was published quite recently this year, and it serves to highlight and talk about how the importance of having the right company culture can be for innovation. So innovation obviously is essential in a lot of industries, and very much so in the pharma and life sciences and tech arenas. And most companies, they have this portrayal of their values and their culture at a corporate level. And most businesses that were interviewed by Hannah said that they felt that there was no problem with gender diversity. Interestingly, even a company that had not a single female employee thought that they had no issue with inclusivity in their culture. Very interesting. So, the report came out really to try and provide to shine a light on actually, what is perceived at an employee level can be very different from the corporate position, and how having a set of policies and values can actually serve as a bit of a facade for what's really going on, and that it's the lived culture that's demonstrated, across the organization from senior leadership to the bottom that really highlights what a true culture looks like. And so there were sort of three main pillars that were identified as being crucial for innovation, which were transparency, collaboration, and communication, or something like that. And so, if you look at people's micro behaviors, the way that they actually, conduct themselves, perhaps, and to give a couple of examples, if butting in and interrupting people is normal, then that's actually can be, that's a culture that, we use the term, or the term that was used is to describe it as masculine norms. So these kind of aggression, self-confidence, self-promoting, dominance, these are sort of some negative characteristics that can actually just be quite disruptive in a culture. That's not to say that all, masculine traits are bad. Obviously, being assertive, displaying leadership. There are many, many good traits, but this report really served to highlight actually that it's those negative ones that can be quite destructive of the kind of environment that you want to make for collaboration. If people are put off from putting their ideas and their viewpoint forward, then you're not hearing from everyone. You're not getting that diverse input that's so essential to explore new ideas and new solutions. And one of the other key areas is that if you're portraying an environment that makes failure not okay, then that's not great, because people aren't going to own up to their mistakes and their errors, or are not going to be too afraid to say that something isn't working. And that doesn't give you an opportunity to learn from those mistakes and choose a different path to go forward. So there are lots of ways in which these portrayal of actually what the culture looks like can be quite disruptive to innovation. And they published a whole toolkit to help companies to actually do a real evaluation of whether they're getting their culture right and whether it's serving for those key aims that they want to do in innovation. So, it's great to see these new ideas and new research coming out to highlight actually, what many people in their lived and working experience are finding. And it's really important also to stress that if you don't have that inclusive culture, so not only women that are negatively impacted, it's also the men in the organization that are negatively impacted.
Yeah, it is a toxic environment that affects, of course, everyone. And it is important to recognize that, because as you say, there is a problem of perception sometimes. No, people feel like, no, everything is okay here. We treat everyone the same, but then if you go into it, you actually see that there are behaviors that sometimes are even not, recognized because they feel like normal. You said about the failure. The failure culture. Like if something is not working or something is wrong, it's better to hide it under the carpet, because otherwise you will be you will not be okay, and you will be taken as responsible for that. You have to own up to this. So it's important also to embrace that. And we also talk a lot about the imposter syndrome in our work. Like the people that they have to show up as super confident in everything and super expert in everything, but even if, of course, they are not, even if it would have been better if they ask something, or like, okay, I don't know this, can you explain this to me? Sometimes people are afraid of doing that. And it's important to promote this inside, in every company. But of course, I'm referring more to our, sector in the pharma world. This is clearly important. And from like you say already, there was the studies and going on, but from an institutional level, political level, are there things going on? Is this listened enough, or it is more, left to company discretion, let's say?
I think it's great to see so many so many areas that are acknowledging that there's a problem. We're seeing it more and more also in the discussion around funding for women-founded startups. There are definitely more initiatives, I think, trying to combat this this disparity that we see. I think there's quite wide acceptance that there is a bit of an institutional problem in some areas. These are really complex things to try and tackle. There's also the gender bias, the fact that, women founders often highlight that they feel subjected to a totally different type of grilling when they're going out seeking investment than they think their male counterparts experience. Really complex situations. As I say, I think it's important to acknowledge that we're talking in very, stereotypical and painting everyone with the same brush here. But, I think there are key differences between the way that men and women think, behave, and operate. That's not to say that we're all the same. Obviously we're all individuals and we all express ourselves differently, but there is, I think it's quite widely acknowledged that women are subjected to different perception when they behave in certain ways than men. Women that are assertive get labeled bossy. You never describe a man as bossy. Why is that?
Exactly,
It's totally unfair.
Exactly. No, I agree. I mean, there are labels that are specific for women that usually are, of course, perceived as negative as well. So that, I mean, you make the example of bossy. I mean, bossy is seen as a negative trait, but when a man is bossy, they feel like, okay, he's strong, he's powerful, and
exactly. He's a strong leader.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a very good point, actually. I mean, also the language. I mean, the way we say things sometimes is. It is cultural, I think. No, I mean, we came across from a very long time of, I mean, still are in a male, oriented world. Now we are trying to move out of this,
and I think
this perception. Yeah.
I think that's something we're seeing more and more as well, and that's something that this report that I was mentioning really serves to highlight, is that most of the sort of norms, the cultural norms that are widely accepted, these are, a lot of them are masculine norms. And so it's about saying that actually, as we move forward and we want to create a more progressive culture and more acceptance and a more inclusive environment, that we need to think about how we realign those norms and make sure that, everyone is being included. And it comes down to quite small things, like if you're holding a meeting, perhaps in the office, have you got everyone around the table that should have a voice here? Is this discussion only happening perhaps with the, some of the senior leaders, or are there actually junior people in the teams that could have some input and be involved in a discussion? Is a person that's working remotely not there because they're not in person? And it's about how you can facilitate that and make sure that, you have to really consciously build an inclusive culture to get the maximum you can out of an organization, and not just fall back on these these typical values and behaviors and traits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is about creating the environment that fit for everyone, and everyone would feel that they are making an impact and they are making value out of their work. I mean, that's important. And also we have seen a lot of problem with inclusivity. I mean, in many aspects, not even like in the work environment, but also like, for example, I mean, I work with clinical trials now, and you see how the gender bias has affected science, like because women were not included in clinical trials, and how this affected the whole, process down the line. So it's more about thinking that the society as a higher level needs to be addressed. I mean, needs to be oriented to everyone, and this has not been the case, of course, in the last few years. And I feel like we are probably, we are in the right time now to do that. We have the technology to do that. We have the consciousness to do that. So it's important. And the next generation, I mean, the one that we were mentioning before, are even more active, I feel like, in this area. No? I mean, they are clearly more, open to discuss these. They are open to take on the challenges. Also, like the younger men, they are happy to, discuss their role and say, no, okay, we have started from a place of no equality. We want to get to the same level here. And in your association, I mean, you feel like there is more of a younger generation of girls or women or whatever, or it's a mixed, like also like people from our generation or the generation before that are happy to share their experience, get involved, and recognize that there is this kind of problem started from that generation.
Yeah, sure. We're as a new sort of like with grassroots movement really is what we are. We're a collection of individuals that have come together to try and facilitate something. We're just getting going, so we've only had a couple of events so far, but we did have women of different seniority levels. And myself and my co-founder, we were, when we were discussing our vision for the group, we were both of the same mindset that we wanted the group to be open to anyone, at any level. And for myself in particular, I really want to encourage those, younger generations and women that are just probably not even really thinking about how they're going to carve out their career routes to think about building their networks at an earlier stage. So I'm very much wanting to bring in, more junior women. And, we would hope to also attract some more senior representation, particularly as we think about how we can perhaps enable a bit more mentorship for women's empowerment going forward. So we did have some really great viewpoints expressed during our discussions. So far we've just had a couple of round table discussions led by a couple of panel speakers, and they've had some great insights, and they've been women in more senior positions that have led those roundtable discussions.
How long has been the association up for? I mean, when did you start it?
So we had our first event in May and our second one in September, and we're hoping to have sort of like quarterly get-togethers, or perhaps some slightly more frequent informal socials and a chance for women just to get together and expand their network and meet one another.
Yeah. I mean, and what is the vision for that association? I mean, where do you see that going in the next future?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I get asked that quite a lot, especially actually by some people quite close to home, who are asking me, what do you want to get out of it? So, I can really only speak for myself and my own motivation and what I want to see from the group. But, for me, it's about recognizing that women have got different needs, and I think something that I always struggled with was speaking up for my aspirations. I really struggled to talk about where I want to go and what I want to do, and also I have always experienced a need to have a bit validation from my peers or other people with whom I confide. And so I wanted to create an environment that would really promote both those things, so that women can have more confidence about talking about actually what they want to do perhaps in their next step in their career, or how they want to see themselves developing and evolving as people, perhaps moving into leadership, or even if they don't want to move into leadership, to still feel that they belong at the table, to have a feel valued in their careers and that they have things to contribute. I think it's it's quite a commonly recognized trait that women are much less likely to speak up about their own accomplishments. And coming from a background of medicinal chemistry, I'm quite aware that actually it's really a career path that's all stemmed around speaking up about what you've accomplished, and actually it's all about inventorship and things. So you really do need to be able to self-promote yourself in that sector to progress. So I think part of what my aims are is for women to feel more able, and that it's okay, because normally women are expected to be quite agreeable. That's what society and our gender bias expects from women, is for them to be, not self-promoting and to be quite agreeable. And so it's about helping women to strike that right balance, I think, to do what they need to do, that their male counterparts probably wouldn't even think twice about doing and saying.
Yeah, no, exactly. Sometimes, it is important to tell them, like, it's fine that you speak up. You don't have to ask permission sometimes. Just go and do it. And you're right. I mean, in the med chem world, it's all about a little bit bragging about yourself, saying, okay, I made this, I made that, I have papers, I have patents, and these kind of things actually push forward. But you also,
and again, it's important to stress that that is the accepted cultural norm for this thing, and it's not about man bashing. It's not about saying that one side of the table are doing it all wrong, but it's about I think one of the things that we would aim as a group also is to shine a light on the fact that this is what the culture looks like in certain areas, and actually that women do behave differently, and it's important to make sure that women are encouraged and brought along and brought up as they develop as individuals and in their career paths and things. So
and you also said another thing that I find interesting, like that people, and we always think about the career as vertically, like going up the pyramid, right? But sometimes it's just fine to, find your place and make sure that, you are recognized for what you do, even if this doesn't mean having a promotion or, about being recognized in other ways, of course, but make sure that your job values whatever the level is. And this is a structure that I think sometimes it finds it very challenging for everyone, but for women in particular, when you see the pyramid scheme, they're going up and there is only one at the top and you have to reach there. You don't actually. You have to find your place along there, make sure that your job is recognized, that your value is recognized, and make sure that when something good happens because of you, you said it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, that's amazing. And is there any event going on soon? Something already planned for the
So we got
association?
something in the pipeline. We're hoping to obviously we're moving into the winter now, but we're hoping to get some sort of social this side of Christmas, and then probably something hopefully in the new year. So planning a couple of social activities as we move ahead, and then thinking about collaborators that might want to work with us for future events. So at the moment we're just a network of people, an organization. We don't have any official sponsorship or funding from anywhere. So we're interested to connect with individuals that perhaps might want to help us by offering a venue that we can use. Excuse me.
Sure.
Or senior leaders that perhaps want to build an event with us, and any support really that we're open to. And otherwise it's going to be a case of going along to a couple of buy your own social networking events.
That's good. I hope that people that are listening, there are people that might want to reach out to you later.
Another thing to say is that although we're an Oxford focused group at the moment, that's because it's easy to connect with one another geographically. If anyone is interested in doing something similar in their local area and perhaps wants to get some ideas, I've had a lot of conversations with other individuals building networks about what works or doesn't. So if I can help anyone else in any way who perhaps has an idea to build a network, then please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Exactly. That's the whole point of it, creating a network, creating collaboration, talk with people that are in the same area or in other areas that might want to be involved, and that's all about it. Okay, no, that's very important and very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about, you already gave a lot of amazing advices during the conversation with, how to, address challenges, on how to overcome, hurdles along the way of your career. But what are a piece of advice that you would, share with the younger generation, with people that, not even young, people that are in that place that they are not sure what they're doing, or they want to focus on something else, or for women that feel like they are not in the right place, or they want to get a better work environment?
Oh, that's a really really big question there, quite tricky to answer. I've bashed on about it quite a lot in the discussion so far, but I think it's about seeking diverse, advice and viewpoints from people. I think, I can talk about one of the things I've struggled with at certain points in my career is where I faced opposition about my viewpoint is led for me to question my own validity, and to think that actually there's something wrong with the way that I'm thinking about something. And so it was by opening up about that, discussing it with perhaps some peer confidants, that I've actually that's turned me to change my viewpoint and realize that actually it's not something wrong about me and the way I'm viewing the problem, but it's perhaps the approach of other people. And so really it's about having a bit more self-confidence and believing in yourself, and to find a sounding board wherever that can be, whether that's a colleague, whether that's someone in your personal network, whether that's someone more senior perhaps that you can approach, a parent, a manager, or
It can be anyone,
someone perhaps somebody external in a different organization doing a similar role to you might have a good perspective. So, these are just some of the benefits that can come from, having a diverse network and having different people to speak to. And, I've learned so many things and been inspired in so many ways through random conversations that I've had. You might think, what's the point of, having a broad network? But, I've had great conversations with, people in marketing that have given me new inspiration to, start posting on LinkedIn or whatever. And other business developers in other organizations that have helped to, give me little golden nuggets of advice. So there's also an awful lot you can learn, online for guidance. LinkedIn has really evolved over recent years. It's become a totally different place to what it used to be. It's not really a job board anymore. People give away such fantastic advice and viewpoints, and you can pick up a lot of new ideas from there. And yeah, so I think, my main advice is just to talk to people and have confidence to proceed with whatever they feel drawn to. And it's okay to not have a perfect plan for your life. I still to some extent don't know where I'll go next or what I'll do next. But
no, exactly. We have to normalize that. I mean, in life science in particular, there is this, a lot of things that I feel I felt wrong as well, like the publish or perish or thing, or these kind of things that you have to work the extra hour, the extra time. You have to do the extra work, because then that's the only way that you can get what you want. Which of course, I mean, yeah, if you want to put the extra effort, that's and walk the extra mile, okay, that's fine, but it doesn't have to be the norm. It doesn't have to be how it is supposed to be, because otherwise you will end up in burnout and I think there is a lot of more awareness on that now about the burnout. I mean, it's not something that we were talking about 15 years ago or something like that when I started. So this is something that we are now addressing, I think, a little bit better than we used to, than what we did when we were the younger generation, let's say. So it's important that people recognize that their mental health it's very important, and they don't have to give it away for doing something that they don't feel. And sorry. And that is very important. And you also mentioned LinkedIn. How do you think that the social network actually, because LinkedIn, as you said, has changed a lot, and we use the social network much more now than we used before. And I also feel like with COVID, we rely on that platform rather than the human contact. I mean, do you feel like it? I mean, how do you find the perfect balance between these things? Using social media to promote your activities, but also like having this human contact, let's say, with your peers, with the people.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we're seeing a lot more about the rise of this idea of needing to have personal branding online, and you can get loads of great advice on how to do that. I think what's really important is to not be afraid to start if that's something you feel that you would like to do, to start posting online or sharing your your insights, your viewpoint. You have to do it in the right way. You have to obviously do it in a very professional manner. But, it can be quite diverse, the types of content that people are putting out there, and you can find some really authentic voices. That's what I've really enjoyed about it is, seeing and getting, you really can feel like you can get to know what a person is like a little bit from the type of content that they put out there, and you can predict the opinion they might have about certain things, but you can get some really great valuable advice from those platforms. And I think it also helps individuals to recognize how much they actually know themselves and how much knowledge that they probably just think, oh, that's something everybody knows, everybody probably already knows that. But when you see that other content producers put out a bit about their knowledge and things, it does help and other people to learn and be inspired and things. So I think it's really evolved, and you can feel like you actually have developed connections with people that you might never have met in real life.
Yeah.
And that's something, we've never had before really in quite the same way. There are lots of examples where there are communities that only exist online. Gaming is a massive community. And is that any less valuable than the people that go down the pub together? Well, I don't think so. And I think we see that much more in a business sense. I think we have society is wanting to get to know actually the organization on a personal level. And, to some extent that can be accomplished online. And there are lots of people also putting out new ideas about ways to promote, to do business to business marketing in new ways, which is really refreshing to see as well. So you can just, pick up ideas or be influenced by lots of different diverse viewpoints. So I do think LinkedIn's becoming a really valuable learning tool, actually. We have very much this idea that, training needs to be formalized, that you need to go on some specific course or pick up training in that way. Since my degree, I've never wanted to study again. And so aside from doing, I think, a retrosynthesis course a long time ago, I've not really received any formal, training or been on any training course since then. So, it doesn't, learning, you can keep doing your self-improvement and your self-development and just do it in, small windows when you can find something to read for yourself.
Yeah, it makes it much more accessible, because you have 5 minutes free time, or spare time, you can read something. I mean, before it became, you have to invest yourself in doing it. Okay, you have to go there, do a class, or I don't know, whatever it takes, or take a course online, whatever. But now it's more like, okay, I can do it. So I feel like, if I feel I need to do it, they make it very easy for everyone to access these kind of things, and to keep let's say the learning curve growing, even when if I have to think about going back to study something, I would. No, that's a no for me.
That's a no for me.
I learn everything. For me, I learn everything. So no, that's important. Like to make things accessible and make things easy for everyone that wants to, improve themselves. It makes it easier also for exploring new fields. Like, sometimes that was for me. I don't know if it was for someone else, but like if you have an hobby or a passion outside of your work, you feel like, okay, I have to do this only in that, like outside of the working hour, or like, when I have that half an hour of time in my day that I can use for that. Here, now you can cultivate that passion. You can, learn more about the passion. Whenever you want. So that's important also to explore other opportunities that are not strictly related to your job or to your, work life or whatever. Okay, then. Very, very interesting conversation, Rachel. Thank you very much for this. One thing, where people can find you, of course, on LinkedIn, as we know, because I found you there. But like your association does have a website.
So at the moment we're just on LinkedIn. So our group is a LinkedIn, community group. So you can find it pretty easy. It's Oxford Women in Life Sciences. That you can just search for that and you'll find it. And if people want to connect with me individually, then I'm always open to new connection requests. And very happy to speak with anyone who's got any interest in what we've talked about today, or if I can help to connect people with anyone, then don't hesitate, please, to get in touch. And I'm Rachel Pearce, so you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, thank you very much, Rachel, for being here with us. I think you share a lot of very, very important insight for people and for women that are now in life science, but for in general. We know this is a societal problem, and we are now addressing it. It's going to be a long process, as any society change, but I'm happy that there are people like you that actively are doing something for this, and I thank you again.
And thank you. Thanks very much for showing an interest in what we're doing, and giving me the opportunity to have such a great conversation together this morning. It's been really nice to see that there are other people also interested in what can be done to help to make a difference in with these subjects.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you anyone for listening, and goodbye.
That's a load of science.